I'm Danny Byrne for the Web Seller Circle, and I'm here with Cindy Shebley. Tonight we're going to be talking about the art of making and creating information products. We're going to be talking tonight specifically about video. In the previous episodes, we've covered ebooks and a little bit about graphics and how to make graphics that would make your ebook or your DVD or CD cases stand out, how to make retail-ready product cases, and how to make your ebooks look like professionally laid out books, rather than looking like something that was just laid out in Office as another Word document. Tonight we're going to look at video and how to make it a little bit special. I know a lot of you have asked questions on the Web Seller Circle forum about video, and we have quite a lot posted there about Camtasia. If you're not familiar with that, if you go to the Web Seller Circle and scroll down just a little bit to software skills, you'll see a section that's called Camtasia. If you click on that, you'll see a listing of all the articles we've done about Camtasia that'll help you get started with that software. If you go a little bit further down, you'll see one called Video Tools, and this covers Microsoft Movie Maker, Sony Movie Studio, and some video tutorials in general. And again, if you scroll down, you'll see quite a few articles. We also have a section called Video Tutorials. The Video Tutorials is actually just a list of every tutorial on the site that is done with a video included. It's not about how to make videos. So if you want to find all of the tutorials that include video, that's the place to look. But if you're looking for how to make videos, you want to go to Video Tools, Camtasia, Tools of the Trade, and maybe look on the other side for DVDs or information products and stock photography. All of those things will also help you find specific articles and videos about what you need in terms of software skills, hardware, and videos to get you started. We have some videos specifically about making videos, how to, we had a 4-part series at one point on how to tell stories, what hardware you need, what software works best. We have an introduction to Movie Maker, and we have a little bit about using Sony Vegas and the settings to use for YouTube, but we don't have a real introduction to Vegas, and that's what we're hoping to do tonight, because making videos with Sony Vegas and Camtasia are very important skills for any information product producer. Now, I know a lot of people are already using Camtasia. Partly this is because you hear so many people talk about it, and partly a few years ago it's because Camtasia gave away a copy of Camtasia 3 when they were introducing Camtasia 5. Camtasia is a relatively expensive piece of software. It's in the $300 range, and to get people into buying it, they wanted you to see how powerful it was and then give you an upgrade price from 3 to 5. So a lot of folks jumped on that Camtasia offer and have been using it as their only video editing software. And in fact, this is sort of similar to what I do when I don't have the right tool. The fence behind my house has a back gate in it, and that gate has a loose nail. and every time I pull on the gate to open it, I pull on that loose nail and it comes out about ½ an inch. And rather than stop what I'm doing, go back in the house, get a new nail and a hammer and some putty and fill the hole and re-nail the gate, I usually just bend down, pick up a rock, smack the nail on the head and call it good enough. That really isn't doing a whole lot for my fence, and that approach towards your video tools isn't going to do a whole lot for your video either. Camtasia is a tool for screencasters. It's not meant for live video. If you use Camtasia for live video, you're going to find that your video is a little bit choppy, that it doesn't have smooth transitions in full motion. You might even find that your video and your audio get out of sync. It's because it's made to do one job and to do it extremely well. But if you want to start editing full motion video, that is the kind of video you take with a flip video camera or a camcorder, then you need something besides Camtasia. In that case, you need Sony Movie Studio or Windows Movie Maker or Adobe Premiere. There are a number of different products. The one I like and that we're going to talk about tonight is Movie Studio. These are known as non-linear editors. You'll sometimes hear them referred to as NLEs. That just means you don't have to go in a straight line with your editing. You can work around several different parts of your timeline, and you have a lot more flexibility. But what you don't have is the limitation that you'll find in Camtasia of just 1 or 2 video tracks, 1 or 2 audio tracks. You'll be able to work with up to 10 tracks at a time, and that's very important. So remember, for screencasting, Camtasia is what you want. Few things will beat Camtasia for recording the monitor and the action on your monitor. Now, if you have a Mac, there's another program besides Camtasia for the Mac. But I think if you're doing screencasting, you might already know it. But for video, and again, if you have a Mac, you don't want Sony. If you have a Mac, you probably want to use Final Cut or Final Cut Pro, or maybe iMovie Lite, one of the Mac-specific editors, or the Mac version of Adobe Premiere. So, although tonight won't be a Mac-specific show, you'll have a lot in here about editing that you can apply to those programs. These things all work in a roughly the same manner. So tonight we're talking about Sony Movie Studio and how to use it as an editor for full motion video. So let's get started. Let's take a look at its interface. Now I have on my timeline here a little 1-minute video of me and my dog Buster at the beach this summer. I'm not using this because it's any great piece of movie making, but to the contrary, because it's so simple and straightforward. And yet I want you to see how you don't just take your flip video and toss it up untouched onto YouTube. There's so much more you can get out of it if you use something like Movie Studio. And you'll see up at the top of the screen is what's called the timeline. And it's a series of different tracks, some for video, some for audio. And it's really like working with building blocks. When we talk to you about Photoshop elements, we're working in layers. In Movie Studio, this non-linear editing, it's not layers, it's tracks, but they all get layered on top of each other And when you see it, all these independent tracks all play at the same time, giving the impression of one picture, although there may be up to 10 different things happening at once. So let's take a second here and look at this 1 minute of video. You'll notice the Sony interface. Let's take a sec beforehand. We have our menu up here, icon bar. These are the video and audio tracks. These are the control panels for each individual track. At the bottom of the screen, I have my media pool and the preview window that lets me watch the video itself. We'll look at more of these things in more detail in just a sec. I do want to point out that in Sony, all of this stuff is docked and detachable. That means, for instance, I can grab these dots here and pull my preview window up, and it automatically resizes as long as I have it on auto. I have it on preview auto, which means it's going to try and give me the best preview for the amount of processing power available. If I know I have a super duper computer with lots of RAM, lots of memory, and nothing else going on, and remember right now I'm not only running Sony, but I'm running Camtasia and GoToMeeting and a web browser, I can do it at best quality, which is what it'll be rendered at, and I'll know exactly how my movie's going to look. But for now, we're going to go at preview and auto. And I'm just going to run this little movie of Buster, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, that was Buster at the beach. And as I said, I didn't show it to you because it's necessarily a great piece of filmmaking, but because even within that simple 1 minute little bit of video, we've used almost every element that you're going to need to know how to use to make longer videos, how-to videos that you might want to sell, or just to make really interesting videos for your eBay auctions or up on YouTube to get people to come to your website. So let's look at the elements of what we had going on there. Before the video, and I'm going to leave this down here for now so we can see the whole screen. So if you want to see what I'm talking about as we go through it, look at this preview window down here. Now you'll notice before we even start it, I don't know if you can hear it very well, but the sound comes up slowly. And there's sound before there's video. Hear a bit of the ocean. And then this gradient card comes on. It's orange with yellow at the in the middle. It fades on, and then the title, Buster at the Beach, fades in. So we've already got several different special effects going on here. These two items are the titles and the title card. They're separate tracks, so that if we decide Buster's not going to be at the beach, but instead Buster's going to be in the mountains, I can just dump this and keep everything else the same. The sound comes up and you'll see all of these things fade in, and you'll see these lines here. I hope you can see them. They're kind of curvy white on the orange one. That's the easiest to see. On the soundtrack, it curves in and then it goes straight across here. What's happening is that I'm fading in, and with Movie Studio, the way you fade in is you grab a handle and pull it. So let me start rebuilding this over here to the right, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Here in our media pool are all the little clips and pieces of this and that I've used to build this. There's several individual clips from my flip video camera. There's some sounds. There's a still picture, because I wanted you to see how you can use still photos. There's a title card, and there's some rolling credits and some text that's made with the media generator. Most of the things here that are not either video, soundtracks, or stills come with Sony Movie Studio. That is transitions, video effects, and the media generator. And you'll see their tabs here at the bottom of the screen. If you look to the left, you'll see a list of items, and on the right, a demonstration of what those items might be. So up here at the top, we want a text to write Buster's name. I take the text sample, and I just pull it up on top. A window will open, and it gives me an editing area that's a sample text. Now, I'm going to put this in the center because I know I want it centered, and just write Buster, hit my return key at the return beach. There's nothing really fancy going on here. It's just text. And if we look, take our scrub bar, and see this line goes along here, shows you what we're looking at. You'll notice as I move the scrub bar, the preview changes. I'm going to jump over here to the one we're building, and when we get the scrub bar over Buster at the beach, you can see her name, but the background is all black. This background is clear. It's a alpha channel is what it's known as. It's invisible. Everything under it shows through, but there is nothing under it, so it's showing black. Buster at the beach just shows up as black and white. Over here, it showed up as white against this colored background. See the difference? You also, in the media pool, before we finish with Buster, you also have placement, properties, and effects, and I can alter this text through those. With placement, I'm going to pull it up a little bit so you can see it. I can move Buster at the beach all around. Get it over the scrub and watch in the preview window. As I move this within the window, I can change the placement of the text. And it's all very visual. You do have an X and Y axis if you're going to be very precise, but if it's good enough to do it by hand, you can just go ahead and do it freeform. You can also use presets to set it in certain areas. We just put it in the center again. And this also shows you your safe zone. You don't have to worry about that online. That's for TV screens. Remember, this is a video editor. It's meant to be used not just on the internet, but on TVs. And on older tube-type TVs, 10% of the video could be covered up by the cabinet and the things that hold the video tube in the box. So to make sure your video stayed within a safe zone, it's marked off here as inside that line. The properties let you change the color of the text or the background, and the effects let you do things like, see that, put a yellow on there, an outline, feather it, you can shear it, you can do things, simple changes to the text like that. This isn't meant to be very complicated. This is just a simple titler. It's a very simple titler for your text. So I'm going to close Buster at the Beach. And we want to get this title card. So once again, we go up to our media generator and we just look for solid color. None of those seem quite right to me. I might want to use these in other circumstances, but as I said, in this one I kind of like the idea of a sunrise. So I went to the color gradients and grabbed this sunburst. The linear yellow to red might work. Any of these you can see have a sort of a beachy feel to them. You could try all kinds of stuff, but I decided to go with this one. And when you bring these up, they're already set for a certain duration and a certain size. The frame size will be 720 by 480, which is a standard ratio for 4:3 aspect or for a DVD. This isn't widescreen TV. This is what they call standard definition. And once again, you see you have your color pickers here. You can change all of this if you want to. We're just going to stick with what we've got. And you see in the window already, we've got Buster's name and her title card. Now let's go and bring up some of the movie stuff itself. And the first thing we're going to do is bring up our ferry. And that starts over here. Now, you'll notice when I brought up the ferry, it also brought up a soundtrack. And if we play that, you'll hear mostly wind, because the flip doesn't have a wind muffler, and some ocean sounds. You notice it's very, very shaky at the beginning. There's not a lot of reason to want to use most of this video. All we're doing is starting with an establishing shot that says to people, oh look, we're somewhere that has a big boat on water. So that it's a lot easier to show that than to explain that we're at a ferry terminal. Now, there's lots of ways you can cut and trim a movie. With Sony Movie Studio, if you put your cursor at the edge and push, you can just watch in the preview window while you get to the part you want. So let's start it right about there. And then I'm going to pull it back over. Now I overlapped it a tiny bit because I wanted it to fade, not through black, but dissolve one to the other. And you'll notice in the original, we also had a little bit of time here before Buster's name came up. But you'll notice the sound, I said, came on first, and here the sound isn't going to come on. And if I try to move it, I move the whole thing. What you do is right-click on your video track, just the one you want to move the sound from. And this is an important trick. You're going to use this one a lot, so let me repeat it. We want to uncouple the sound from the video. You right-click on the track, and you go down to Group, Remove From. That ungroups the sound, and I can now pull out the sound so that it will start before the movie itself starts. With something like this, with a video of a ferry dock and somebody rowing a kayak, it doesn't really make much difference if the sound is uncoupled. The sound's going to be pretty much the same no matter what I do with it. So there's no real worry to that. But you'll notice that once I uncoupled them, I got them out of sync. If it was a video of someone talking, you'd now have the effect where somebody's lips were moving and words were not coming out properly. Sony warns you that you've done that by turning the soundtrack pink. So you've immediately got a visual cue that's saying, stop a second and look at this. Is this really what you meant to do? These two tracks have a pink around the picture and a pink around the sound, and you know that there's something just a little out of sync. Also, you'll notice that I foreshortened them because I didn't want to have a whole long intro. Now notice when I pull the sound over, it's longer now. When I pull it over to match, see that blue line at the end? It's showing you where it lines up. And now it lines up right against the end of the movie, the video part of this, so that the sound in the video will stop at the same time. It won't bleed into whatever I'm doing next. So now if I move my scrub bar just a little bit before all of this starts, and we play it. Watch down here now. Okay. Sound, video, title, motion. But things came on abruptly, one after the other. When we look at the original, we see fades and dissolves that we're not seeing. And it's a lot more pleasing. So, as I said, all you need to do, up here you'll see a little thing called auto crossfades. We're going to use that in a minute, but not quite yet. We're going to put in some manual fades. And again, we're going to do it by eye, and we're going to do it real quickly, just by putting our cursor up in the corner and pulling over. And you'll see how the cursor changes to something that looks like a quarter circle, and it says fade, offset. You just pull it over. And there's no correct amount or incorrect amount. I'm going to fade the music a tiny bit too, so that's sort of like the volume gets louder as the music comes on or the sound comes on. Make that lined up again when I didn't want it to be. This will make one thing fade into the next. Now let's see the difference between what it was and what it is now. And I'm taking Buster at the Beach off too soon, and I want her to fade out, and I want this to fade out. I don't like the way that the I don't like the way this sunset just disappears and the fairy comes on. I want them to blend into each other more. So again, just as I did at the beginning of the clip, at the end of the clip, I put my cursor in, hold down my left mouse button, and just pull over a little bit and give myself a fade or a dissolve. See? Isn't that so much smoother? I think you can see that and how it improves the overall feel of your video. You may not be aware of these things as you're watching somebody's flip video, and if you can't figure out how to do them, it's certainly better to put your video up without fades and dissolves than to not put it up at all. But they are pretty simple to use, so it's a technique you can work on and master pretty simply in maybe 10 minutes. And it'll make your videos seem much smoother to the people that are watching them. So now we've got our establishing shot, we've got Buster's name and her credits, we've got the soundtrack. Let's bring Buster and me onto the scene. So again, I just grab my clip and bring it up and knock the two of them together. Here's the start of the new one, and go. Now we're going to have just a hard transition. Buster's dragging me. And now we're going to walk onto the set, as it were, and sit down. Buster looks at the camera and looks to the left. And then we go off, and we're going to try it again. She pulls me off. This dog doesn't walk on leashes all that well. And we come back in a second time, and we sit. Now, we don't want to keep repeating this stuff. It's boring. So let's come up here, get me offset, stop the camera jiggle, and start it just before we come onto the set. And on the other end, we want to come in here and stop it just before we leave the set. Right about there. So let's pull this in. And now remember I said we have this up here automatic crossfade. I'm not going to just set those next to each other. I'm actually going to pull it on top of each other. And you see how there's a little X here for about 1:24. That's not 1:24. That's one frame. What is that? It's 1:24. It's frames and seconds, but it's actually a very small amount. It's 1.24 frames, and it will fade and dissolve those two clips together for us automatically. So let me show you what I mean. Here it is, just butted together. We come in, we sit, and we're done. But the transition from the ferry, which is just our establishing shot, to the bench isn't very, it's just a what they call a fast cut. We want to dissolve, so let's just bring it in and watch what happens. It's a little bit smoother. I think that your audience in general will prefer dissolves. And I use that technique over and over here. I put first one, then another clip of Buster. What's she doing in this one? It's a little more of a close-up. And again, I dissolved one into the other. And then a final clip of Buster. And again, a little more of a close-up. Then I dissolved them. And if we just run all three of these, it would take more time doing this, obviously. But as I said, the thing here isn't to show you my movie-making skills. And here comes the dissolve. Gives you a little feeling of time passing. Here's the close-up. The idea is not to show you my movie-making skills, but to show how you build one clip on top of the other so that you have a lot going on. The trouble with this clip right now of me and Buzz is that we have me and Cindy talking to each other. I'm saying, do you want me to walk in? Do you want Buster to look over here? We don't want all of that. So we're going to do what we did before. We're going to ungroup them by right-clicking. Now, if we do delete, we will take out the clip itself as well as the audio. So first we have to go down to Group, Remove from Group, and we have to do that Group remove from group for each clip that we want to ungroup. And I'm going to delete the audio in each of those instances. And I want to show you a little trick I used. I went to a website called naturesounds4.me, and you can create free background loops at this place. It's naturesounds4.me. It has an application here in the middle that will allow you to pick nature and nature in various places. I picked beach, but you see we could just as easily do birds, different kinds of birds, other animals. We have a second one where I did take birds and I took seagulls. We have a third where I took various and just did boat rowing. No, I did children's giggles. And you can adjust how loud any one of these things might be. And you can move them right and left on your soundtrack, because sounds are not always dead center. So I have the ocean in the center. I had the seagulls a little to the right, the children a little to the left. And you can adjust how intermittent the sound is. I kept the ocean constant. I moved the seagulls to that. And I moved the kids down so that they were just laughing occasionally. And then export to file. And it will put this all together and let you save it as a WAV file. I don't want to go through the whole thing right now, so I'm going to just close this. But I exported it, saved it, and then I was able, you'll see it here, Nature Sounds for Me. I didn't change its name. Just pulled it up onto my timeline, overlapped a little bit. You'll see it's stereo. Bring it back. I'm going to leave it a little long. And it's not 100% perfect, but it's certainly better than me saying, do you want us to sit here, or are we in focus? And things like that. It gives you a much better backing track for something like this. So you can find things like this on the web for free, all kinds of things to dress up your video. One site you want to get familiar with is called Digital Juice. That's www.digitaljuice. DJ sells video enhancing products. You can get all kinds of themes and motion backs and toolkits, sound, soundtrack music, all kinds of stuff. They sometimes have free downloads, sometimes they don't. That stuff comes and goes. But they have specials all the time. And it's worth signing up for their newsletter and being alerted to their specials. They also have teaching videos in their support forums and a free bit of software called the Juicer that will help you use all of this stuff. So Digital Juice is a good place to become familiar with. Find stuff like their theme kits, where you may find that you can get all kinds of weird little elements that you might use just for one particular video, where you're making an entrance or you want something in the back. Maybe you sell things for swimming pools and you want this pool theme kit because it has a whole bunch of elements you can use to help you sell your products. and you don't have to go out and shoot it yourself. You can get stock photography, and it's yours to use, royalty-free, very high quality stock photography at reasonable prices. And you'll see these toolkits are $50 each. October you can get 10 for $129. You may not need 10 of them, although that brings the price down to $12.99 a toolkit, which is amazingly cheap. Or you can wait, and sometimes they'll just have the toolkits on sale. So it's a site to become familiar with. The other site, of course, would be iStock Photography. They've gotten a large supply of video and audio stock, royalty-free stock now. So you may be able to find pictures of people doing things like yoga or walking on the beach, walking down the street, city views that would help you establish where you'd use your product. You might even find things if you're just making a YouTube video and you want to introduce it, like that establishing shot of the ferry. You might find things like that on iStock. So it's certainly worth going and getting familiar with their collection of video clips. And don't forget to just use Google. There are a lot of people who go out and take videos and want to share them for free, as long as you give them some kind of credit or acknowledgement at the end of your clip. So when you roll that credit at the end, you would say special thanks to, and the name of the videographer, or something like that. And again, royalty-free, high-quality work. Just look for it. It's all over the web. Meanwhile, back in Sony Vegas, we want to get rid of some of this stuff, so let's pull in our soundtrack. Let's fade out of our clip. And over here, now I just used a still, so I'm just going to pull a still up here. It's just a shot that evening, again at the Mukilteo Lighthouse, but I wanted to have something to show you that even in a movie you can use a still. Again, I faded it out, and I left a little tiny bit of space. You don't want to leave a lot, but the way you fade from black is to fade out, leave a little space, fade in, and that's called fade through black. So watch what happens here, down here. See the transition? Now, again, I pulled my soundtrack in so it ended. Vegas knows it didn't cut out, it didn't remove the soundtrack, it just stopped playing it where I stopped it. I can pull it right back out, and the ocean sounds continue. And maybe I was going to do something here with this still, like cut in and out to various shots of the lighthouse or something. If you look at, I want you to look at the picture, you'll see we've got black bars top and bottom. Doesn't quite fill the screen. This is fixed quite easily in Vegas through something called pan and crop. You'll see a crop symbol on each clip where it ends. You just click on it. That gives us the ability to change the aspect ratio, and I'm going to go from 4:3. There we go. Get it back in. And now you'll see my aspect ratio matches. It was letterboxing it. So up here you have the default 720p aspect ratio. We want it 4:3 because that's what we're using for the flip video. And once you match the aspect ratio, you can recenter or do whatever makes you feel like you've got it in right. And you'll notice in the original, we actually panned as well as cropped Let me pull this up and you can see it a little better. Watch over here, and we'll move across this video a little bit. This still photograph, actually. So even our still photos have some movement to them. Faded to black and brought up the black credits. Again, these are very, very simple things to do in Vegas, and they're not, we go into the pan and crop tool, they're not hard at all. What I do is, here's my first, where I want to start. I put in what's called a keyframe down here on this track. I click on this little diamond, click on Create Keyframe. Then I can choose to change the area that will show is inside this frame, right? So I'm going to make that a little bit smaller, and I'm going to just say I want to end up here. That'll be my last keyframe. So I move my scrub bar all the way to the end, and then insert another keyframe. Now when we move it, you've got a little bit of motion going on here to make it more interesting. And you can do that with any still, so that if you just have a product shot, you can appear to move around, move in closer or farther away, even though you don't have a video to show of your product. You can create motion. And finally, credit rolls can be done quite easily in Vegas by just coming over to your media generator and going to credit roll. And I use the plain black scroll. Again, you just pull it up, you drop it in. Let's pull that sound out. Fade them both in and out. And just as we did with the name Buster, just click on the title and type something in each of these areas. There's nothing tricky about that. It's just typing. So I'm just going to put Buster at the beach. So you'll see it. And here's my credit roll. I didn't take anything out, I just put Buster's name in. But you see how simple it is to create rolling credits. No talent necessary. It's a preset, you can do it in your sleep. And you have plenty of other choices. You can scroll them left side, you can scroll them in color, you can bring them out from the back. The only thing we haven't added here is Buster's name coming on screen, as Buster does. Watch down here. Oh, and the soundtrack. So, let's real quickly, let's add our soundtrack. Go back to Project Media, pull up this, which is the sound. Fade it in, and I don't want it to be very loud, so this is why I'm going to actually take a minute to show this to you. This is the normal sound. And I think for most things, this will be too loud. So what you want to do is be able to lower the sound just on this track without affecting everything else. And there's two ways to do that. There's the volume knob here, which will do it for the entire track. It'll all be even. Everything will be equally loud or equally quiet. What I want to tell you about is an effect called a volume envelope. You go up to Insert, Audio Envelope, and click Volume. You should have a check mark next to it, and then this blue line will appear. What you do is right-click on the blue line and choose Add Point. And wherever you put a point, then you can bend the sound. So the easiest way is to put 2 points next to each other, and you can just pull it straight down. You can pull it over. The lower it is, the lower the volume is. And you can put points at any position, make it come up, make it go down. You know, so your volume can be quite wavy, quite in and out, quite variable depending on what's happening in your movie. Maybe you have something where you're building tension and you want the sound to suddenly come up and get loud to make your viewers pay attention. Boom! And then you want it to go back down again. That's done with this audio envelope. It's a very important thing to learn about. There's also something equally interesting. You'll notice under Insert there's a video envelope. And we only have one track of video here, but let me pull this over and show you something really interesting. Now, as we go along here, the video on top is going to cover the video on the bottom. We can actually come in, insert a video envelope, select the track, insert video, composite level, and you see this line. I'm going to add a point, pull it down. I don't want to pull it down there. I'm going to pull it down at this point. Add another point, pull it back up. And watch what happens as we play the video now. This part up here in the beginning is going to be, I want it to be more opaque at the beginning. It's going to cover up what's beneath it, then you're going to start to see it, and it'll fade it in and out. Usually you have more to work with in this few seconds, but I don't want to spend a lot of time. See our little ghostly walking in the back? This is called compositing, and it's how you make your track above show through to the track below. In terms of what we're doing, it makes no sense whatsoever. But it's a very handy technique to know. Back here. When you don't want it, you just take it off, uncheck it, and the compositing is gone. So that's a quick look at Sony Vegas. There's a lot more that we could show, but I think you've seen that it's basically just building with blocks, one thing on top of the other. So let me just show you. I promised it to you. That's Buster's name coming in. And that's done with the media generator again. We're going to go to text. We're going to just do the old sample text, nothing fancy. Pull it up above Buster. And I'm going to remove the sample text and write her name. Put my scrub bar over it so I can see where she is. And you see she's covering up here, the whole thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Properties and make my background color clear. by just pulling all the way down on this slider. You can increase or decrease the opacity, and I'm just going to make it completely clear. Now, I don't want her in the center, so I'm going over to the placement window. We looked at this already. And I'm not worried about her getting offline, especially. So I'm just going to put it down there. And here we'd have a static lower third. If I just stretch this out to the whole length, this is kind of like, you know, where somebody comes on to 60 Minutes and you're wondering who that geezer is yakking away. And then the name comes up, General blah, blah, blah. That's what one of the ways you use a lower third. You might want to use it for your name, for your product's name. You might want to put your website down there, your website address. Whatever. It's in the lower third of the screen, so it's called a lower third. And it's very easy to make them. You saw, you just use a media generator and type it. On the first one, through the magic of Buster, she came in and sat down, and her name followed her in. And the more motion and movement you can keep in a video, the more you keep your audience's attention. So how did I get Buster's name to move? I went to Transitions, and I went to Slide, and Slide Left. Okay? So you see what we're doing? I'm picking among Transitions, Video Effects, and Movie Generator. I want to use a transition, and so I pick what I want it to do. I want it to slide onto screen. This will give you, the names are not 100% helpful, but they give you an idea. Blinds, you see what's happening, kind of like Venetian blinds. Cascade kind of rolls down. Fly in, fly out. They're what you'd expect from the name. Dissolve is the most common one. But in this case, we're going to use slide, and we're going to slide from left to right because that's the way the dog is coming on screen. So I've picked this. All I have to do is right-click and hold, drag it up, and drop it on the clip that I want to slide. I'm just going to accept all of the defaults. I'm going to slide in, and then close it. And now, as Buster walks in here, we should slide our lower third across the screen. There she goes. But you can see how you can pick these things up and they just go right across. You don't need to use a special effects generator or other really fancy, complicated equipment like Adobe After Effects. As I said, the idea is just to show you how quickly and easily you can build something here. It's just a little 60 seconds worth of video. It's nothing really fancy, but it's taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tracks of video and audio just piled on top of each other. Little fades in and out, dissolves, slides. Lower third, title card, title. We had a pan and crop here. We had some zooms here. Things that you just cannot do in Camtasia. And yet they're very simple. We never had to use anything that wasn't included in Vegas except for the video itself and the soundtrack. And we were able to take out a soundtrack and put in a nature soundtrack that we were able to build ourselves for free with no knowledge of how to go about building a soundtrack. That's what I want you to take away tonight is the right tool for the right job can make your job so much easier. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week when Cindy's going to talk about Camtasia. Goodbye.